The Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky. Chapter 14. Now the time has come for you to think about personal things that are near and practical. We have spoken much about theory, and you use too many words without asking yourselves what you mean by them. Now we must deal with facts. We must understand where we can start from as we are. At any given moment, there are things we could control, but do not control through laziness, lack of knowledge, suspicion, or something else. We must think about these things. That would be right thinking. Try to find your personal difficulties. I do not mean difficulties of an external kind, but inner difficulties, personal features, personal inclinations and disinclinations, attitudes, prejudices, activities which can stop your understanding and prevent you working. All the difficulties you can meet in your personal work can be roughly divided into 3 categories or classes. First of all, negative emotions. For some people, this is the first and perhaps the chief point. So they have to begin with a study of negative emotions and study of methods of non-identification. Some people cannot stop being negative, generally in some particular direction. And when negative emotions become hardened and permanent, they usually stop every kind of work. Everything becomes mechanical, and a person cannot progress. The second point is imagination, particularly negative imagination, for it is as bad as negative emotion. By imagination, I do not mean daydreaming. I mean rather imagining things that do not exist, either in oneself or in other people. Everyone must try to find this kind of imagination in himself and the particular things to which it relates. The third point is formatory thinking and formatory talking. If one does not have a picture of what is formatory and what is not formatory, one cannot progress. It is necessary to get this picture. It's very useful to find some good examples of formatory thought and to keep these examples in mind. Then it won't be difficult to recognize it when you catch yourself thinking formatorially or hear someone else speaking formatorially. These are the chief kinds of difficulties that you have to find in yourself. For one person, one thing is more permanent. For another, another. Later on, you will probably discover many more things, but in the beginning you will find that it is roughly one of these. One can have a difficulty that is most urgent, and everybody can find which of these 3 is theirs. You must find what is most pressing to struggle against and concentrate on that. There must be reasons for deciding on one or another, but all 3 refer to everybody. For most people, it is necessary to begin with negative emotions. For some others, it's necessary to begin with imagination, for they invent things, and so never come to real things. And for yet others, it is necessary to struggle with formatory thinking, for if they don't, they will always remain in the same place. Question. You said that there were many ways of destroying negative emotions. What are they? Answer. And this is the answer given by Gurdjieff. Answer. First, you must know them. You must know in yourself the most important negative emotion, because everybody has a pet one, and you must begin with that. You must know where to begin, and when you know that, you can study practical methods. But first of all, when you find negative emotions in yourself, you must understand that the causes are in you, and they're not in other people. They are internal, not external. When you realize that they are in yourself, results will begin to come according to the depth of your conviction and the continuance of your memory. You see, What I want you to understand is that each person separately has a certain definite point which prevents him from working rightly. This point must be found. Each person has many such points, but one is bigger than the others. So each of you separately must find your chief difficulty, and having found it, work against it. This may help you for a certain time, and then perhaps you will have to find another difficulty, and another, until you find your difficulty of present moment. You will not be able to work in the right way. The first difficulty for everybody is the word I. You say I, and do not think that this is only a small part of you that is speaking. But behind and beyond this, there must be something else, and this is what you have to find. It may be a particular kind of negative emotion, a particular kind of identification, or imagination, or many other things. You must understand that all the difficulties people have are such because people are such. Difficulties can disappear and change only when people change. Nobody can make their difficulties easier for them. Suppose a good magician came and took away all their difficulties. It would be a very bad service to them, for people would be satisfied to remain as they are, because there would be no reason for them to wish to change. Try to think about what makes things very difficult, or takes much of your attention. Question. I think my difficulty is self-pride. Answer. Self-pride makes a good servant and a bad master. But how to make it a servant? Only by beating it. Take the example in the New Testament about turning the other cheek. An ordinary person will say that self-pride will not let him. But if you can turn self-pride into a good servant, it will make you do that. And this is important, because to be able to do that means other things as well. A quicker perception, control over the emotional and moving centers, and many other things. Question. I don't quite see how to begin finding my chief difficulty. Answer. Everybody must try to find his own difficulty, not somebody else's, and in order to do that, one must get rid of one's prejudices and of thinking that ideas are one thing, work is another, and life is yet another. So long as you think like that, you will not understand. You must realize that you work here for your own personal aims, and that there is no difference between life and work. There are many things that stand in your way, in a life sense now, and in order to conquer them and improve matters, you must do what the work suggests. The results will be seen in ordinary life. In relation to people, to things, and to work, you have to do in life. Let me read that sentence again, because I'm not understanding it. The results will be seen in ordinary life, in relation to people, to things, and to work you have to do in life. Oh, and to work that you have to do in life. Okay. So try to ask questions only when referring to your own personal difficulties. Abstract things may admit occasionally. No, abstract things we may admit occasionally, but remember that they are not the first aim. Question. How can I struggle with possessiveness? Answer. First of all, mind must become free from justification of it. Mind must be separate. It must not identify. We have a certain control of mind to the extent that we can command here. If you decide not to justify a certain negative emotion, it is already the beginning of the struggle. Then the mind will act on emotions. What is the cause of negative emotions? They're usually caused by other people. It's always other people's fault. That must be stopped. You must recognize that the cause of your negative emotions is you. You must not find reasons for negative emotions. It's always easy to find reasons. Question: should we try to discover what is in us that was demanding expression of a negative emotion? Answer: very often it is limitation. Somebody else expresses negative emotion, and something in you admires him and thinks how beautifully he expresses this negative emotion, and wants to imitate, and you do not know it. It may be many other things, but very often it is imitation. Question: then you say we must work on fundamental ideas of the system. Do you mean like work on negative emotions? Can it be called work if one tries hard to work on oneself in this way? Answer: in any case, whatever you call it, you have got to work on negative emotions, first by studying them, then trying not to express them, then going further and finding your own favorite negative emotion. Suppose someone has no self-pity. Then it's easy for him to work on self-pity. But he may have some other emotion, his own particular one, against which it's difficult to struggle. Generally, one has only a few principal negative emotions, although some exceptional people may have more. Question: I find it possible to struggle with smaller negative emotions, but sometimes they are too strong, and there is an explosion. Answer: I try to explain that negative emotions are different, and you cannot use the same methods against all of them. In all cases, you must be prepared. It is too late to think when you are already in a negative emotion. You must study identification and be able not to identify. You must be able to think in the right way. Not at that moment, but before and after. You must be able to use negative emotions for self-remembering. But before all that, you must be able to control the manifestation of negative emotions. If you cannot control the manifestations, you cannot start struggling with negative emotions themselves. But you must understand that you can do nothing when you are in a negative emotion. You can do it before and after. Sometimes, when you are better prepared, you can use them for self-remembering. But that is quite a special thing. In the work, everything can be used. All wrong functions can be used. So, negative emotions of all kinds can be useful as a help for self-remembering. By that, I mean that you can train yourself in such a way that negative emotions will remind you of the necessity of remembering yourself. And this is a rather long chapter, so I'm going to pause here. And I just want to say one thing. Earlier in the book, I was saying, in the question and answer, I was saying the questions are always put forth by Ouspensky and the answers are given by Gurdjieff. Now, Ouspensky studied under Gurdjieff, but apparently this book consists of answers given based on Gurdjieff's philosophy, but it's actually his students who put the questions to Ouspensky, and the answers are given by Ouspensky, but they are in the system of Gurdjieff. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but this was pointed out to me by one of my listeners, and I think it's a good point. I mean, I'm finding a little hard to keep it straight because I still kind of think, the answer is given by Gurdjieff. No, it's based on Gurdjieff's philosophy, right? Yeah. Okay. So I hope that helps. Till soon.